Hey everybody, this is Felicia with The Book is Done. I am coming on because I just finished a book. I actually finished two books like within the last 24 hours. One is The Guilty One by Kirsten Modglin. It was a Kindle, so I don't have that book like in front of me, but I will talk about that book. So one book, the second book that I did finish was the Noel Letters by Richard Paul Evans. Y'all, when I tell you, I don't know if it's because like I'm just ready for the fall. Fall is my favorite season. And winter is right after it because I don't do the hot, I don't do the bugs, I don't do the humidity and I don't do it. So, I don't know. I don't know. I just needed I think when I read a book, I can't even remember the book, but it was like I think it was called Loretta. And at the time it was an arc. That book has been released. That is by Nadija Mujagic. And that book was so good. I have to do a review on that as well. It was a digital arc. Still playing catch up, y'all. But I needed a book that was going to I didn't even realize I was in a funk. You know what I mean? Like a book hangover, if you will. And the first book that I read was what is this? Promise Me? Yeah. Sorry, I had to look on my bookshelf. Promise Me by Richard Paul Evans. And I was just like, this is such a good, feel good book. And so, of course, he's been out for a super long time. I've had his books for years sitting on my bookcase and I didn't even read it. Like, I was just like, I'll get to it. Your typical to be read book list, right? And so I read Promise Me and I was just like, you know what? This book is is romance, but it's not overly romance. Like it's just a nice it reminds you and I don't want to say that because I don't like this too much, but Lifetime, Hallmark. That's what we'll say. Lifetime movies make me mad. You understand? Like I just, the woman is always so helpless, or it's always so. Lifetime makes me mad. Like Lifetime stresses me out. No shade to Lifetime, the Lifetime network. Do what you do. You've been doing it for years, my whole life almost. Hallmark, I would say Richard Paul Evans books are like Hallmark movies. Not to say that it's too good to be true because it's still, he puts in like this realistic, it really can happen. There are angels type thing. Like, and he's not overly religious and no shade against that because I'm a Christian. I believe in God. So, is no shade in that. And for those who do and for those who don't, especially that watch my videos, hey, you do you. No pressure here. But for me and mine. But with Richard Paul Evans books, it just makes you feel so good. Just I it's like I'm trying to rush and play catch up. If he reminds you of Mitch Albon mixed with Nicholas Sparks with the Christmas flair to it. Um, oh my gosh, it's just if you've ever read Deck the Halls by Mary Higgins Clark or um, Skipped Christmas or Skipping Christmas by I don't think that's John Grisham. It's not John Grisham. It could be Glenn Beck. I think it's John Grisham. But just any feel good books. It's just I don't know. Richard Paul Evans. Y'all, okay, let me get to the book. So the Noel letters. Oh my gosh. Ugh. The Noel letters talks about this young woman who I want to say she's in like her early mid 30s and she gets this message from her dad who she had spoken with. She lives in New York. She's a senior editor of a major publishing house or publishing organization corporation in New York, and she's from Utah. And she receives this information from her dad that says, I am dying. I would love to see you. Backstory of it all, she hadn't seen her dad in like 17 years. It was just not the best relationship. She had went through a divorce. She just went through a divorce. Um, with her job, it was just foolishness going on with the job. It's dealing with publishing, then it's New York on top of that. So, you know, tensions can be high. So she's traveling back to Utah. So as she's traveling back to Utah, like she's really not looking forward to it because like I said, their relationship was not all that great. And her name is Noel. And so it was Noel book. And then when she got married, her married name was Noel Post. And so unique names, but she's on her way back to Utah, and she gets there, and it's this woman named Wendy. Wendy is her dad. Her dad's name was Robert. Wendy was her dad's right hand person. Like, come to find out, her dad ran and operated a store called Bob Books, and or it looks like Bob Books, but it's Bobbooks, and Wendy was the one who ran everything. Smooth sailing, she was there. And as soon as she got off the plane, um, Noelle was like, I remember you. You're Wendy. And she said, Hi. She said, Your father passed away 4 hours ago. So Wendy is all distraught. Like she's been crying. Noelle's just like, sorry to hear that. And so um she stayed. She's kind of like numb to everything because she like really wanted to at least see, because her dad was like some things need to be said. And so she was just like, all right, I'll come home, whatever. And so I'm just like, oh my god, like what happened? As to why I was just like, I'll come home. So she gets there and go through the motions. Like her mom had already passed like 20 years before. And so Wendy had a lot not Wendy, Noelle had a lot of resentment towards her dad for stuff that you will find out throughout the book. But Wendy, you could tell like either Wendy and Robert, the dad, were super, super close, or whatever the case may be. Wendy was just like always, always emotional, as if like she was his wife. And but they weren't married, never together. And so Wendy was like, I was with your father every day. She works with him in the bookstore. So like they've been working together, I think, for like the last Wendy is Wendy is Noelle's age, which is like in the 30s, but she had been working in a bookstore since she was 15. So she had been with her dad, Robert, every day since she was 15. And so she loves this man, like head over heels in love. Y'all, please excuse my appearance. We were caught in the rain earlier. But I digress. So, stuff goes on. An attorney shows up at the house. Um, her dad, Robert's attorney, Christopher, shows up at the house and he goes through everything. He was just like, your dad had a policy, $1 million. So you will be receiving a check for $1 million here once all the paperwork and all that stuff takes about 30 days. And the bookstore, he gave the bookstore to you. He gave you a combination of two safes. One is in the store, one is in the house. Obviously, he gave you the house. The house is paid for, so it's yours. So Noelle is getting all of this stuff. Noelle is trying to get back to New York. So like as she's like, I think this was like right before, like while she's on the plane, she gets a message. This may be like after. Oh yeah, she gets a message from her roommate that says that I guess her husband is moving back in and that Noelle has to move out. So she was like, I'm sorry, not sorry. You have to find a place. So it was like maybe 2 days after she got there or whatever, she gets a call from the publishing company and they're just like, I'm sorry, but we have to let you go. And so she's just like, okay, I have no job. I had no place to stay. I might as well stay in Utah for a minute, because she was only trying to stay like literally for a couple of hours, turn around, go back to New York and live her life. And so she ends up staying in Utah. And father he was a planner. He had everything planned out. He had his funeral planned out, the obituary, what he wanted to say, who he wanted to speak. And it was like hundreds of people at this man's funeral. And Noelle is just like, who are all these people here to see? And it was her dad. And she didn't know him in that capacity like that. She chose not to know him in that capacity. So, um, The service happens. This woman named Grace comes up. She speaks beautifully. She has the whole feel as does Wendy. She's emotional, she's graceful, but she's very, very sad. Everybody is super, super fond of her dad, and she's just like, why is everybody like this? Okay, whatever. So she the attorney was just like, the bookstore is yours. So she goes to the bookstore. She knows that Wendy runs things. And so, in all things, she's like trying to get into the feel of things, get into the groove of things, she's waiting for the insurance money to come. And there was some other things that were given. I think he had like stocks and bonds that was worth like $115,000, something like that. So she's waiting for all of this. And this is like October. And so she was like, I'll just stay here for a little bit and see how things rub over. I don't have a job, don't have a place to stay, got a house, work at the bookstore. Why not? So while she's staying there, somebody comes to the door named Dylan. They were in school together. They went to like middle school together and then high school together before her dad sent her away. And so they end up getting close. He's a single dad. His wife left him. She wanted to live her best life and not being a mom. She felt like she wasn't cut out to be a mom. She wasn't cut out to be a wife. She just decided to up and leave her family. I feel some way about people like that. But that's a whole nother video. So, single dad, his parents are still there. He was a foster child, so the parents that adopted him are still there. And so his name is Dylan. His daughter's name is Alexis, but he calls her Alex. The parents' names are Charlotte and Stratton, or Strat. And it's just a well written, well rounded book. Um, Miss Charlotte and Mr. Stratton are from down south. I think they said like Huntsville, Alabama is where they're from. And so they came to Utah. I forgot what it was, what happened with that. But in all things, so over the course of the book, Dylan and Noel are getting close. And like as Noel is at the bookstore, she received this letter, and I already knew who it was from. She thought it was from a secret admirer. It was written on like this beautiful paper, and it had just beautiful, beautiful sayings in it. And I'm trying to find what it is that the letters would say at the end of it, because it was like a special meaning. And she was like, you don't know. Wendy was like, you don't know what that means. I'm about to tear up everything. She was like, you don't know what that means. And she was like, no. And so, not to say it was like an admirer or anything like that, but in all things, you just have to read the book. So, in reading a book, the letters, and it's just going to have some spoilers. This video is going to have some spoilers in it. But come to find out, Noel thought that it was Dylan that was writing the letters, because in a sense, it seemed like it was kind of like love letters, but it wasn't that. And so, I just had a feeling it was from her dad, and it was from her dad. Not to say beyond the grave, but he had already planned what all was going on. He knew that Wendy was, why do I keep saying Wendy? He knew that Noelle was hurt, that she wasn't talking to him and all this good jazz. And he was just like, some of the letters was like, you have to love through your hurt. You have to have patience. You have to have understanding. You have to have courage and all this kind of stuff. And she thought that it was from Dylan. Dylan was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so, it was just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful letters. And it was like towards the end of the book, she's offered her job back to move back to New York. And at this point, she's falling in love with Dylan. She's falling in love with Alexis. Oh my gosh. It was like maybe 10 chapters, because it's like 30, 40 some chapters, but they're short. Alex looks up to Noel. I think they were getting ready to go ice skating. And it was super spontaneous. They were getting ready to go ice skating. And Alexis was like, will you be my mommy? What? I tried my best to keep my eye dry, because I was just like, oh, she was so sweet. She's only like 6 or 7. And so it was just so pure. That moment was just so sweet. And the only thing that Noel could say was thank you very much. Not in a weird way, but she was just like, what do you say to that? Like, oh, I love it. And so, in all things, like towards the end, she's offered a job back. Noelle takes the job, and then she decides she wants to sell a store. She fires Wendy. Like, it's just a whole hot mess. And I was like, yo, what is going on? Like, what's happening? And so in the end, it all comes together. All is made right. And so, and then it ends like the epilogue is like 2 years later. The feels. Listen, the feels. Like, I just, where's Rick? Where is Richard? Where he live at? I want. He lives in Salt Lake City. He makes me want to travel out to Salt Lake City and shake his hand, honey. I gotta get on his website or something and see what his new book is, and if he's doing a book tour or something like that. I need to meet this man, because in just these two books, I had one. I had another one on my bookcase that I totally forgot that I had it. I was like, oh, I have another Richard book. So, and then I went to Second and Charles. If y'all have never heard of that, it's like a used bookstore. But they're like, maybe it's like the South. I don't know if it's national. But today they had a sale where it was like penny a page. So however many pages is in a book, you pay a penny for it. So say that you have a Stephen King book. You know, Stephen King book got like eight 800 pages, 500 pages. You only paid $5 for it. You only paid $8 for it. And so I was just like, I need me a Richard book in my life. Yes, a Richard book, a Richard Paul Evans book. I need it in my life. And so I found one book. It was like for $2. And I was so excited. That one is called The Noel Diary. And then we have two locations here in the Atlanta area. And so I went to the second location, found a second book called The Christmas Box. It was for $1.25 because it had 125 pages in it. What? Let's go. So I was like, okay, cool. So I already knew I was going to finish the Noel letters here today. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to start. The one that I have that I'm getting ready to start is called The Mistletoe Promise, Richard Paul Evans. And then I have these other two, and they're small books. Mess around with me, I'll be finished with all three by the time tomorrow night come. It's something about, and I've never been like a romancy, oh, I need to get in my feels type thing. I ain't with all that. Like, I don't like to cry. You know what I mean? And I'm not about the whole lovey-dovey romance. Oh, he's my sugar, she's my tea. We ain't about all that. But at the same point in time, I love me a good story. That's why Nicholas Sparks made my eyes sweat just a little bit, because it's not so fictional where it can't happen. And it's the same thing with Richard Paul Evans. Like, his books are just so, it just makes you feel good. So in all things, I spent about 20 minutes on this video. So not intentional, but I feel like I found somebody new, and he's written a whole gang of books that I have to catch up on. But if you have read any of the Richard Paul Evans books, please let me know what you think. I'm not reading these books. It seems like the majority of his books are like written around like Christmas time, like the holiday time. But I'm not reading it because I'm ready to get into the Christmas spirit. I was ready come January. I've been ready all year. If I could live in Christmas town all year, I would. Like, if I could have snow. I mean, a little bit of spring is okay. Where it get up to like 60, 70, like 70 max. But if it could snow all year, what? If I could run a fireplace or like use my wood burning fireplace all year, what? Make s'mores all day? What? Listen, leave me there. So, in all things, just want to tell you about a super good book that I read. It's like I'm so excited to read. Like, now I take my test. I retest for COVID tomorrow, hoping and praying that it's negative. I believe that it's negative. I feel better. I just have to get some sleep. But it's just nothing like being excited about reading a book. It's nothing like looking forward to your next book. And then too, it's also nothing like finally starting to read books from your to be read book piles. I have bookcases of books that need to be read. And so it just feels good to just knock one or two off. So in all things, I hope that everyone is having a good night so far. It is 10:08 Eastern Standard Time in the evening. I'm going to get my life together, and then I am going to start on the Mistletoe Promise. I'm going to try not to read all of it, but I have to be like in a quiet place to start a book because I have to at least mentally lay the foundation of the book, and then I can go into it. Like I can't be running errands and start a new book because I need to focus on what's happening, who the characters are, all this good jazz. And so in all things, I hope that y'all are having a wonderful day so far, that you are enjoying the weekend. It's crazy to believe we're almost in September, but here we are. It's crazy. But I hope that y'all had a good day. Let me know what you think. Like, fill me in. Have a good night, y'all. Bye.